The Northeast Region. Hello, and welcome to our exploration of the 5 regions of the United States. Today, we're going to take a look at the Northeast Region, traveling back and forth in time to examine how and why it became the place it is today. We'll start with the building blocks of the Northeast Region, the natural resources. The Northeast is rich in wide open land for farming, good soil, stone for mining, plentiful forests, and many types of water. Let's start with the farmland. As a natural resource, farmland is quite abundant throughout the Northeast region. That means there's a lot of it. It's used to grow crops like potatoes, tomatoes, blueberries, cranberries, corn, and squash. There's a lot of stone in the region. Stone can be used to make buildings, bridges, roads, statues, and even kitchen counters. Getting the stone out of the ground and ready to be used is the kind of work that is done in a quarry. A quarry is a large open pit that cuts deeper and deeper into the ground, from which the stone is mined. Here in the Northeast region, the quarries produce a large amount of granite and also marble. Another feature that the states of the Northeast share are the landforms and geography of the landscape. For the most part, there are 2 geographical features that define much of the region. One is mountains, and the other is the Atlantic Ocean. Many rivers and waterfalls flow down these mountains, and they've been put to good use. In the old days, settlers were able to use this fast-running water to turn the wheels of their mills, which ground the grain they needed to make flour and bread. These days, the same fast-moving waterways are used to create hydroelectricity. Hydroelectricity is electrical power that is produced from the energy of flowing water instead of fossil fuels. Moving eastward, the land flattens out into a landform known as a coastal plain. A coastal plain is defined as the flat, level land along a coastline. And a coastline, or coast, is the land that directly borders an ocean. Eventually, the coastal plain runs right into the other dominating feature of the region, the Atlantic Ocean. Long before there were the northeastern cities we see today, there were the Native Americans and their settlements. As with most Native American tribes, people shared the land and its many resources. This went on for hundreds, even thousands of years before any new people came here. Then, starting in the late 1500s, the early explorers, and later the settlers, discovered the sheltered bays and the many natural resources of the Northeast. Some Europeans even decided to move to this new land to make a living by selling the region's lumber, fish, and beaver furs back in Europe. People began to spread out looking for beaver pelts, especially along the waterways and rivers leading to and from the Atlantic. The early settlers set up trading posts to trade beaver furs for goods with the Native Americans. Some of these trading posts grew into settlements and eventually into cities. The search for beaver pelts helped spread the settlers inland along the rivers from the coastal cities. So it might be said that beavers and the fur trade helped to create the Northeast region as we know it today. The new country grew, and people came from other countries to live in the United States, with many settling in the Northeast. For everyone, the 1800s brought important inventions and great changes. Machines that could spin cotton into yarn led to the creation of textile factories. This invention was very important because now people could just buy cloth instead of having to make their own. What a difference! Textile or cloth factories were soon being built all over the Northeast. Other factories sprang up too to manufacture other types of products. This time period was known as the Industrial Revolution. It's no surprise then that so many large cities grew up in the Northeast. Let's explore. First, there's the biggest of them all, New York City. It's home to over 8 million people who create the non-stop hustle and bustle that is nicknamed the Big Apple. Nowhere can you see this better than here in Times Square. You'll also know New York City as the home of the Statue of Liberty, a symbol of freedom known around the world. The famous Empire State Building was the tallest building in the world for almost 40 years, and it even has its very own zip code. It's named after the state's nickname, the Empire State. Here is the 2.5-mile-long Central Park, the place New Yorkers and tourists love to visit to unwind and have fun. Next on our list is Boston, a city filled with beautiful sweeping cityscapes, wide-open green spaces, and many historical elements. Boston Common is the oldest park in the U.S., dating back to 1634, making it almost 400 years old. In its earliest form, the Common was the place where the very first citizens of Boston would bring their cattle to graze. Those days are long gone, and now you're more likely to see a concert, a protest, or any manner of gathering here. Boston is one of the leading cities in the world when it comes to higher learning. It's the home of Harvard University and the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, better known as MIT. Boston is also steeped in history. Do you remember hearing about the midnight ride of Paul Revere? Well, Boston was his home, and this was his house. You can still visit it. Then, just a stone's throw from Baltimore is Washington, D.C., the nation's capital. Of course, this is where you can find the White House, the Capitol Building, and the Supreme Court, symbols of the three branches of government. Washington is also known for having quite a few monuments and memorials, many of them honoring past presidents. Here is the Lincoln Memorial. This is the Washington Monument, and the Jefferson Memorial, honoring President Thomas Jefferson. This memorial honors the great Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. All along the National Mall are the many museums that make up the Smithsonian Institution, like the National Air and Space Museum. Not only did all of these cities grow over time, but so did the suburban areas around the cities. When you group a city together with its surrounding suburban areas, it's called a metropolitan area. Some metropolitan areas have grown so large that they overlap each other. These overlapping areas are now forming a megalopolis, which is a single huge metropolitan area. One megalopolis runs from Boston down to Washington, D.C., as a long chain of cities, one running into the next. So as you can see, the Northeast region has come a long way from its roots in the fur trade. We hope you've enjoyed our trip back in time to look at how the Northeast has grown into the region it is today. Join us again as we look at the other regions that make up the US of A. Bye for now.